So, hello everybody, welcome to Innovate this workshop for Clear Week. I don't know, obviously I've just been chatting to Tim, I know he's been to a few. I don't know if the others, Caroline and Sam, have been to any of the other workshops or events, but we can have a little chat about what Clear is about before we kind of then delve into this. Basically, it's a taster about what we mean about innovation in when we talk about it within the Clear projects and the Clear program. So you just get a little flavour of that and what it means to us, and we'll see what it means to you as well a little bit, hopefully. So starting with innovation, before we go into exactly what Clear is, do I just need to say next slide or something, Charlotte? What would you like? Shall I like wink really like aggressively? I'll just say next slide. Okay. Defined potentially as introducing new ideas, original and creative in thinking. Okay, so this is one definition of innovative. What does we're talking about it in terms of improving healthcare, like in that context, what does it mean to you guys? What do you think, like, what is innovation when we're talking about improving services? Or what is your experience of it so far?
Helen, would you like to say something? Come off mute.
Put stuff in the chat as well.
Oh, hi, sorry, I'm sorry, I've just literally logged on. I'm so sorry for being late. It's just work stuff. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
So for me, innovations in either in day-to-day or work stuff is something that's new to that process or that situation. It may well happen somewhere else in your world, and it's something that's transferable, or it might be something that's completely new, but does something to improve either the user experience, whether that's patients or staff, or be more efficient and more effective, or just sometimes a little bit more creative and a bit more fun.
Yeah, good.
I'm going to put myself on mute now. I didn't realise I'd done that.
well done for launching straight in there. I thought you were going to back out and be like, look, I've just come in, but you actually went for it, so well done. No, that's good. I think that probably hopefully aligns with what everybody else thinks. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Clear, and we'll get back to innovation as well then. So if we go to the next slide. So yeah, the Clear program, hopefully you can see that it stands for clinically led workforce and activity redesign. I don't know if you knew that. It's an acronym that we love at Clear, because when you use the word Clear, then it gets really annoying all the time, but it's they've managed to make it work. And basically, it's a program that is at the heart of it is aimed at teaching clinicians how to do transformation work and teach NHS clinicians transformation work using qualitative and quantitative data interrogations, and then to come up with innovative solutions to the challenges that analysis kind of shows. And we also are very passionate about, and we think that it helps to give frontline clinicians a voice, because it is frontline staff doing the work and conversing with other frontline staff, and therefore that they're the people who kind of are able to voice what they think needs to be changed and improve for the patient. And we're also helping to hopefully build capacity for people in the NHS to do this work internally and not having to spend a large amount of money on external consultancy firms doing it. So that's what Clear is about. Well, that's my interpretation of it, because you might have heard different ones throughout the week. Next slide, Charlotte. And when we break it down to its basic unit, Clear is Clear happens in projects at different sites. That might be a department, it might be an area, it might be a system. And the basic way a project works is it has four kind of parts to its methodology, which you can see here: clinical engagement, data interrogation, innovation, and recommendations. And basically what we're going to do today as we go on is look at kind of innovation in a bit more detail and have a flavour of that work. But at a basic level, as I said, we get frontline staff to talk to other frontline staff and get that qualitative narrative from the workplace about what the challenges are, what the issues are, how it works, what's good, what doesn't work so well. And we then theme that in a thematic analysis and code it so that we bunch together what's coming out of those conversations into themes. So that, so that we have kind of chunks of things rather than lots of different stories. And then we use those themes as the lens in which we look at the data interrogation, the quantitative data interrogation. So we take lots of patient level data from that area, we clean it, validate it, and then visualize it, and we can look at that using those themes to try and guide our kind of analysis of that data, and that can help refute or support, the stories from the frontline staff, and give evidence to them as well. And when you put those two together and you triangulate them, you hopefully have a very strong case for what some of the challenges are. And they might be different to what that department or system thought they were in the beginning, but that's okay, because with the combination of those two types of data to back it up, it's normally quite a strong basis. And then the next bit, which is the fun bit to me, is the innovation stuff, where we come up with the solutions to the challenges. And then in the recommendations part is where we put them into reports and presentations so that they are easily digestible, and we spread the word about them. And the innovation and the solutions are not just done in isolation. That is also part of that conversation with frontline staff about what they think will work and not work. So it's a bit of co-design. So yeah, that's the overall process. And as I said, we're going to have a flavour of one of the workshops that we do in that innovation section immediately after we've found what our challenges are and starting to push for an innovative process. And what does that really mean? So if we have the next slide, please, Charlotte. One before that. Thank you. It's the section where we push for new and exciting and creative ideas, as Helen kind of said. It's where we try and think of doing things a bit differently. And the result isn't always like a brand spanking new idea, but that's okay, because it's the process of innovation that's important, and trying to use that process that will mean that if there is a new and a better way of doing things, we're not bound by how we've done it before. And I really like this section because I think a lot of people working in clinical roles, a lot of people working in healthcare would like to have the time to sit down and think about this kind of stuff, and they just don't. And Clear gives that time, and this section gives that time specifically, where you just sit down with a load of people and bounce ideas off each other about really crazy stuff that may or may not work, but it's actually a little bit fun. And it would be ideal if we all had the time to do that, but we don't normally. So Clear helps do that. And it also, I think, helps people realize that you can think of yourself in a different way as well, as not hopefully just a cog in the mechanism, and that you may have some ability to change things. So that's why I like this section. And obviously at the heart of it is that we hopefully make some really good changes that improve patient care and the working lives of the people providing that care. The concepts and the tools that we use are not bespoke to Clear. Like, this is all theory and tools borrowed from elsewhere, but we hopefully put it together with that data process that I already explained in a unique way. So if we go to the next slide, got a little video for you to watch, and this will set the tone of maturity for the rest of the talk. Hope it works.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking. Since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard. That ain't new, baby.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice. Mother...
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
Get high, baby.
He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug. What's up, y'all?
That's not to say that Terry's gone soft. He still does what he does best.
I already got my oil change. He grows
100% heart, baby. Sure, I jack a few fools. I give them the pain. But sometimes it's about intimidation, you know. It's mind games.
So, all right, I'll see you later.
Check razor! Check razor! Get ready for the pain, woman! The pain train is coming!
It's in there! Don't hurt me! Please don't hurt me! Thank you, Terry! Thank you, God!
Okay, if you've just joined in the middle of that video, I can't see if people are joining, but I hope they're joining. So apart from seeing where my mental age is, that video is about the level of kind of like out there thinking. You know, that is obviously a very, very silly example of kind of a CEO who is into outside the box thinking and has got a crazy idea to hire an American football player to punish employees that are not being effective, and it's increases productivity. And you know, it's ridiculous, but that is actually what the level we need to be at when we push for the innovation process at the beginning. And we'll talk about how we bring it back to normality as well. But yeah, that's why I like that video, because it does demonstrate that really well, and that actually sometimes really ridiculous things, obviously not ones where people are being thrown across an office, do work and you know, do improve outcomes. And so the next question is, he said that, you know, outside the box thinking, paradigm breaking, cliched, aren't they? But you know, are they true? I mean, I think they are. So is there a box and are we in it? I'm going to tell you I'm going to ask you some stats now. So in 1968, NASA created a creativity test, because obviously that was in the middle of their space race and they wanted to find the most creative engineers. Okay, and they gave it to a load of people of different ages across America. So they gave it to a load of 5-year-olds, and they classed people as not very creative, a little bit of creative, highly creative on the basis of this test. What percentage of 5-year-olds that took the test do you think were deemed highly creative? Just throw out some numbers in there, shout it out in the chat. 90% from Claudia. Yeah, so 98% of 5-year-olds were deemed highly creative. They did it for 10-year-olds. What percentage of 10-year-olds do you think they were highly creative? 75, 80, yeah, so 60%, so it's dropping pretty rapidly. 15-year-olds, 15%, 45, well, 15 was very close, 12% were highly creative, and then 25-year-olds, 5%, yeah, so it's 2% of 25-year-olds, so that like dropped off a proper cliff, doesn't it? And it's interesting, but obviously we start thinking in certain ways, and you can see that trend there from those ages about how that kind of happens and when that happens in our life. And we start with thinking in certain ways because we need rules to make sense of the world, and there are social norms, and you know, it's important that we do try and fit in with those ways, and we think and we have those rules. The problem is that they can be constraining in certain scenarios, and when we need to think outside of those rules, we need to have processes and tools and ideas about how we can kind of not be restrained by those rules in the right times and places. So if we go to the next slide. So we're going to do a little exercise to see how creative we are now. And basically, if you go to slido.com, or you can use a QR code to do it on your phone, or if you're on your computer, you can go to slido.com and type in clear innovate into the hashtag, the little bubble. You have the opportunity to put in some words into like a word cloud. And the question is, how many uses do you think there are for paper clips? And we'll just give it 1 minute now for everyone to put in as many uses for a paperclip as you can. There are no rules, there are no restrictions, and as many as we can do in a minute, basically. And it can be absolutely anything. So I'll let you all get on Slido. And when I see the first one, oh, cool jewelry. There we go. Good start. Measuring tool. Okay. A weapon. Okay. Stick paper together. Yeah, that's a very good idea. Bind paper. Yeah. iPhone poking. Yeah. Toll paper. Yeah. Lock pick. Yeah. Yeah. Angle. Paper chainish. Okay. Doing well. Belt. Couple more seconds if anyone wants to chuck a last one in there. Object of wonder. Oh, that's a really interesting one. Okay, so well done. Great picture. Yeah, we're getting there now. 30 shoelaces. Okay, so I don't know if you saw a trend to those, but a lot of them were in line with kind of using a paperclip as a paperclip, but using it to make things, you know, around that, like bracelets, bangles, belts, chains. You know, there were only a couple in there that were getting a really bit weird and out there. And create a picture, yeah, that's good. And that I guess you could do that by just sticking those paperclips together. I mean, if there was a 5-year-old in the room and I can act as the 5-year-old, you know, you could say melt it down and make it into a laser gun, make them into a laser gun or something like that. You really, you know, we do get stuck in thinking about something in certain ways, and actually we have to try and push away from that as well. So that was just an example how we can do that. If we go to the next slide, so if we put this a bit out into healthcare, there's a guy called Edward de Bono, who I think he's actually a cardiologist by background, and he's done a lot of writing about innovative thought processes and innovative thinking. And he has this model where there's things called mental valleys and streams of thought. And basically, these are obviously a theoretical kind of model in which we fall into the same ways of thinking. And you have thoughts that all line up in the stream, and they channel out, like just like in nature, a valley, and that valley gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're more likely to fall into that mental valley of thinking along the same way, and it's harder to get out of it. Now, a really simple example of that in healthcare that I hope I have definitely experienced, and I'm sure you guys may have as well, is when you go and start working somewhere and they do something a certain way, and you go, why do you guys do it that way? Because you've never seen it done like that before. And they go, just because, or that's the XXX way, probably prestigious hospital or trust or organization way of doing it, or that's, you know, that's just the way we do it here, that's the, you know, the way. And that's a kind of classic example of where people have just fallen into a mental valley, and that there's a way to do it, there's only one way to do it. Now, the background to that might be very important. So there might have been an SI, a serious incident, or, you know, a patient safety issue that happened a long time ago, and out of that came the learning that, right, we need to do something in a very certain way. But the logic behind that has long been forgotten, and actually the way is kept going because they've fallen into this mental valley, but actually the reasoning behind it is gone, and actually the result of it might not be as safe or as useful or as needed because technology has changed, education and training has changed, whatever. So that's one way. And I guess we can think about this in terms of wider systems as well. So if you think about, I mean, it was happening pre-COVID, and we're not going to talk about COVID, but prior to COVID, there was a little bit of telemedicine going on. There was things like GP at hand, there was telemedicine for stroke thrombolysis, that kind of thing. But the vast majority of way of thinking for medics certainly, or lots of clinical staff, was that to look after a patient, for me to assess them, they need to be sitting in front of me in a clinic room with some notes in front of me. Okay, and we know now that that model doesn't have to be like that. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, not every circumstances requires that patient to be in front of you to care for them clinically, but you can look after patients, and it can be very efficient and effective, especially for the whole patient population, to have consultations over the phone, over Zoom like this, whatever. So we had a mental model where it was like, the patient must be in front of you. Otherwise, how could I possibly do my work? We've got out of that, and we've moved out of that mental valley to, okay, there are different ways that I can look after patients and see patients. Has anyone got any kind of thoughts or opinions on this, or have kind of thought about this or seen this in action, or, you know, anything at all really? Any questions on anything that we've covered so far? No. Okay, cool. I guess maybe it's a little bit like, what's this got to do with Clear? We're getting there. So basically, if we go to the next slide, just in terms of when we're looking at change then, and we're trying to think about solutions to challenges, there's different ways you can classify change, and one is into first and second order change. And first order change is change within an existing system. So you've got a process, you've got pathways, and you might make those better, you might make them more efficient, but ultimately you're in the same model. Whereas second order change is where you're tearing up that model and you've got a completely different way of thinking about it. So for example, you've got a triage in ED. Now you can, you know, make that triage more efficient, make it more effective, change the staff in it, change the flow in it, but you've still got a triage. You can tear up that idea of a triage, and actually it's not a nurse sitting at a desk which then examines people, takes a history and directs them. You've got a machine that you can put in the reception that patients who register have to walk up to, type their symptoms in, stick their arm in the machine, and it takes their blood pressure, their pulse and their SATs, and the machine can tell them where to go. And you've got 20 machines. So if 20 people come in at once, they get triaged 20 at a time. And that's the second order change, because you kind of like, the system is a completely different system. Now, both of these changes are highly relevant. And for Clear, we don't kind of like say that these innovative solutions need to be a first order or a second order. But what we want to do, and this links back to those mental models, is to allow people to escape those mental valleys and streams of thought, so that if there is a second order change that is the right thing for that challenge, we can go for it. But if we don't push the boundaries to start with, you'll never know. The outcome, when you push the boundaries at the beginning, the outcome might be the same, that you still do a first order change, and that's okay, but you'll never get there if you don't try in the first place. And so that's what this first workshop for Clear is about in this innovation section. So if you go to the next slide, Charlotte. So we push people through divergent and convergent thought processes. So get them to think really out there and wide, and, you know, the ridiculous, and then you bring it back to reality, because ultimately we're trying to find practical, implementable, financially sound, clinically sound solutions. And so talking about American football players, you know, tackling people or crazy stuff like that will only get you so far before you need to bring it back to reality. But you need those cycles of divergent, convergent thought process to allow any innovation to happen in the first place. And that's what the kind of workshops throughout the phase of innovation do. So one of the first tasks that we get people to do is the go crazy bit, and we can try that now. We'll give that a go. So if you go to the next slide, Charlotte. So one of the tools we use is Fresh Eyes, and basically you've triangulated your qualitative and quantitative data together, and you've come up with your challenges, and then this is where you need to kind of push for that divergent thought process. And we give people Fresh Eyes amongst other tools to do that. And you take that challenge and you look at it through a completely different perspective, because we're all looking at it normally from the perspective of a healthcare professional or whatever denomination or kind, or manager or health, healthcare manager, whatever. You can look at it through a very different perspective. And there are very good examples of this. I think Great Ormond Street did something with the Formula One team once about their ITU surgical handover. Anesthesia, I've got very close links to kind of airline safety as well. So, this is a great way to try and change up how you're thinking about things. So unfortunately, probably going to have to unmute and start chatting to each other now to do this exercise, but there's only a few of us, so that's fine. So I'm going to give us a challenge that we need to solve using fresh eyes. And that challenge is going to be, we'll go over an emergency department one. So we're finished our quantitative data analysis and we're moving on to innovation as people doing a clear project. And the narrative when we went to speak to people in the department and did the clinical engagement was that ambulance, we have a lot of ambulance admissions to ED, often with kind of elderly, frail patients, and they have long waits because there's a lot of ambulances at kind of peak times. There's a lot of frail elderly patients generally, and they take a long time to sort out because they're complex needs, and they spend a lot of time in the department, often breaching. And sometimes you think they might be quick turnaround, but you haven't got time to do that properly. There's a very proactive Jerry's consultant and a specialist nurse who come down to A&E occasionally, and they might try and grab some people and turn them around, but it's very kind of haphazard. And we themed that, and we found that there was a theme around frailty patients within the ED when we did our clinical engagement. And we looked at the data, and the data basically confirmed that the demographic shows us quite high patients of an elderly age, and we didn't have direct frailty scores, but surrogates around kind of complexity and investigation show that there's probably an area, kind of high element of frailty with that population, and that there was long stays and lots of breaches, and that when we looked at when they were discharged, some of them were actually being turned around after a couple of days. And so we now have that as a challenge, that we have frailty within an ED department that is not coping, or not the process and the workforce around it are not what they need to be. And it's affecting not only KPIs, but patient care as well. So what are we as a team going to think about to do, what can we do about that? Has anyone got any questions about that challenge? Is that clear enough? I see, I told you the acronym becomes very difficult, becomes a pun. And so if you go to the next slide, Charlotte, we'll just pop down to the next one and probably have to come back up to this one. So there's some ground rule for this that we're very important when we do this for real life. No judgment, quantity over quality. This is not about coming up with a finalized solution. This is not about anything but like a headline or top line concept that we throw out there, and we need lots of them. I think the ideal is 100. I don't think we're going to get to 100 today, but that's what you should go for. It should be as wild as possible. You can build on each other's ideas, but obviously we need to let each other kind of go one at a time. And if you pop back to the screen before, Charlotte. So firstly, were there any questions about that challenge? No? Anyone got a particular perspective that they want to look at this through? Floor is open. Doesn't have to be one of these, can be anything, anybody.
Sorry, Matthew, can you just reiterate what the ask is? Sorry, because there's a lot of discussion there. We got a bit lost in the question.
Our challenge is to come up with as many solutions in a very conceptual form to the challenge that there is a very high frailty burden on our ED, which is leading to long waits and
so it's frail patients in ED.
Yeah,
okay,
and
thank you.
We need to choose a perspective to look at that through and get as many very crazy ideas as we can out of this. Anyone want to choose a perspective?
So we're choosing the perspectives on that list?
You can choose any perspective you want. They're just some examples. and whoever gets to pick first gets to choose it for the whole team. So jump in if you've got an idea.
I mean, the teacher sounds interesting. I don't know how that would really work, but
Let's give it a go. Let's see. Okay, so remembering those ground rules, let's have a conversation about it. I think it would be better than typing stuff out. So, how would a teacher look at this problem, do you think? How does it link to education?
I guess you need to know the capabilities of your class, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You'd have a register first. Or
Okay.
one of those whiteboards that they use with people's name on, they have to put themselves. Maybe they could self-triage on the whiteboard bus and say, I'm more important than you because I'm more ill or older.
Love it. Self-triage. That's a great
Sorry,
concept.
Tim. Sorry, Tim. I didn't mean to cut across you then.
Please do.
Didn't know whether we were chatting to.
No.
I'm married to a teacher, so I can do all sorts of inappropriate things that teachers do.
Okay, self-triage. I like that. Tim, were you going somewhere with something?
Really not. No, I'm just thinking of a comparable profession that has an outcome that's a positive outcome, really, as opposed to a committed outcome. So I was just trying to, but no, I've got no knowledge of teaching at all, really, apart from being a GP teacher. But
so, okay, I've got something. So you normally put people into different sets, don't you, or different ability levels in the classes, don't you? So you'd have a different class for like advanced maths or whatever. Why can't we do the same with the ED? Why can't we just have this frailty ED? They don't need to go to the same place. They've got different needs.
I've never understood why there isn't a frailty ED. Well, in fact, I do. There's no geriatricians. That's the reason. But
but we don't need to worry about that. That's not.
Yeah, some places do, don't they? And then you could set them even further about their activities of daily living capabilities of putting them in a top set for being able to whip up a cream tea. Sorry, is that very ageist? I'm sorry, that's inappropriate. I'm really sorry. I shall take myself away.
Made me quite hungry. So divide by their ADLs or
activities of daily living.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Or how many medications they take, because I do. As we get older, we also this is complete. I'm being very sweeping statements, but there's quite often a lot of medicines coming in those bags. Who's got the heaviest bag of medicines?
Yeah.
You could have a sort of reverse parents' evening where you involve their families, relatives, carers, and talk about their progress, how they're doing, that kind of thing.
I like that. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, understanding the aspirations of your class is really important, isn't it? That's very transferable.
Yeah. Okay.
They could have their pet of the week that they take home as a little companion, or grandchild of the week that they want to swap.
Grandchild of the week they want to swap. Okay.
Here, have this grandchild for a week.
Okay. Or maybe we could have flavour of that. How I'm trying to link that to like the actual ED care. You can have flavour of the week for ED. So at some point we have the heart failure team in ED. At some point we have the diabetes
frailty team in,
or frailty,
they could do random. Oh, sorry.
It's a bit like class lessons, isn't it? You have different, whether it's maths or English or something. So it is a bit like that, having the specialties move. Do they move around rather than how would that work? I just sort of class sessions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, because you have different teachers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have a maths team that do maths teaching. So yeah, they come to you or you go to them. So you can have a separate frailty unit where they go to you, or that separate frailty ED, and there's a frailty team in there to do the teaching.
Yeah.
Could devise some kind of education package to give to carers, which might prompt them not to necessarily be turning up at ED next time.
That's good.
Their homework. That's how it is.
Carer ed package for the ED prevention. I like that.
I mean, I think the bottom line is nobody wants to be an ED. No one has been an ED once, ever wants to go back there again. So I'm not sure how that transfers to school.
Depends on what school you're teaching in. Probably some teachers feel the same.
I guess you want to make it the most effective experience possible, don't you?
Yeah.
So you could also get them to, you know, like we have in secondary school lessons or even primary school lessons, after so long everyone gets up and moves around.
Well, have a load of physios to just like, they're not allowed to sit on the bed for more than an hour. And
yeah, 40 minutes. Good bit of proactive pressure area care.
Be like bumper cars with the trolleys, wouldn't it?
I like that.
Say that again, Tim.
Be like bumper cars with the trolleys. They'd be pretty.
I like that though. That's good.
Marking system for staff, Matt, of how well they've done every day. So I know you've got the targets, but they could have a marking system.
Great idea. Star chart for staff. And
today you've got a B, but tomorrow you could do it better.
Yes, that is a really good one. I like that.
You could clog it up with pointless Ofsteds as well. That'd be a good way
I was going to make a joke about no, never mind.
You can't do that, Matthew. You can't go, I was going to do a joke and then not do it in an innovative session. Go on.
I was going to refer to a quality process in healthcare that you could equate to Ofsted, but I won't go there. So I like the one about moving them around, because if they're getting stuck in ED, there's something about flow. So maybe they've got a time limit and they're not allowed to stay in ED for longer than a certain amount of time, and then they have to go somewhere else. Rather than they just stick around there for 6 hours, because if they're going to be coming in anyway, you just got to put them in. So you put a time limit on their ED stay before they have to go. And if that's home, that's okay.
The thing about education though is it's not what you do to the pupil, is it? It's what it's making the pupil, making the pupil generate their own learning and their own curiosity, their own interest.
So is that then, Tim, something about what's up and around in the ED department or in the cubicles? Because they're very clinical, aren't they? They're not educational. They're not learning for people that come to visit them, unless you happen to be stuck in the crappy cubicle at the end that's got all the old patient information leaflets that we're not allowed to use because of COVID. But there could be something more educational and creative that's in the waiting rooms or in the cubicles or something. So what you're saying, so actually we're giving our frail patients something as opposed to us doing too.
It's a bit more than that. What always interests me is how these really resilient, experienced adults aren't allowed to use that resilience and that experience in an situation. And that's why I'm doing anticipatory care. It's because you want to kind of harness that experience, because they have got a sense of what's achievable and what's not achievable. They've seen their own parents die. They've seen friends die. They know what EDs are, but they just become a passive victim of the whole system. That's what upsets me.
I see. So you're saying like we could say that they get to choose what care pathway they go down. They get to choose if they want to go home or if they think,
100%. I mean, that's absolutely what I'm about. Is once you're in there, you can't go out to read your CT brain. And what if you don't want a CT brain? You're gonna get one anyway.
We take them prisoners, don't we?
Yeah.
We take them prisoners and take them through a set criteria of things. So everybody having a plan, and if they don't even know that they can have one, somebody there like we have teaching assistants to give special, to be able to take somebody through what would that, if you're creating your own plan, what does that mean about you staying at home, or you want to go and live in the sun for 6 months, or that type of thing, that you are allowed to do that. You're not held as a prisoner under by the NHS, even though you've paid into it for the whole of your life. That's also something as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about effective advocacy, which is exactly really good.
I think, like Helen was saying earlier, and that parents' evening, it's about listening to the people with them as well, because so often a patient comes in, they're fine at home, they come into the hospital completely disorientated. So actually listen to the other people around them to check how they normally perform and act, because actually that might give them a completely different outcome.
That's the beginning of a very, very good idea, that whole giving them some choice, providing them with an advocate to go through their plan, including their family. That's the beginning of an excellent idea. So well done, guys. I'm gonna stop us there. I know we were in full flow, but stop whilst you're ahead. So that's exactly the process that I was hoping we would go through, and that's exactly the process that we push for in Clear. And you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got about 15, 20 different conceptual ideas there, and some of them are non-starters, but that really doesn't matter because some of them are potential like really good stuff. And thinking back to that divergent convergent process, the convergence is the next step, where actually we sit down and we look at all these ideas and we go, which one have got legs, which ones do I have a bit of a feeling about, and should we outline a little bit more about that so that you can kind of then start to channel them into kind of the recommendations that you're going to give to as a team and talk about with the staff there. Helen?
Yeah, there was so I've done this type of thing before and done the whole the whole voting thing.
Dot voting,
so there was a workshop, oh God, I can't remember, it was like beginning of this week or the end of last week, that the Q community did around using motivate vote or something, and actually they used a little bit of, it's still the same thing, you still vote for which ones you will want, but it was more around which did you find exciting, which was useful and which was easy. And you can use different sort of I suppose you could use different words to describe how motivated your team are then to actually do it, instead of just going, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and leaving it to everyone else to do, which is what happens quite a bit of the time. And I thought that was a really good way of actually then measuring within within your team which ones do we actually want to do, and what we're going to put our skill behind.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's really
exactly.
Good.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I've not heard of that. That's excellent. We do ease of implementation versus kind of what we like, but I think I think there's something about a bit more emotion that you're saying, like that people are feeling a bit passionate about that one. I think that's a really good idea, and going to the wider workforce with that as well is a really good idea. Okay, cool. That's excellent. And do you do something similar in terms of the step before that, in terms of idea generation with this?
I'm a CUSA practitioner, so teaching associate. So we'd have a whole sort of day on innovation stuff, and so we use like IDEO stuff. And I popped in the chat. There's the Creative Problem Solver book by Ian Atkinson is really good, and a lot of this stuff comes from there's collections of all sorts, isn't there? But people. I love that video because it's slightly different to the shopping cart one that we use from IDEO, but I just love that. I love the thought. I actually want that man in with some of our teams at the moment, which is completely wrong, isn't it? But that whole essence of that. But I just think, particularly at the moment, that the opportunity for people to be creative, we've squashed that out through what's going on at the minute, and how can we squeeze into, we might have half an hour with somebody, how can we get people into a creative space in half an hour? And I think that's the challenge at the minute, because a good few hours is great, you get loads and loads and loads, and then you can really take people through to the end point, and then you can six thinking hats about how we're going to do this, etc. But actually, what can you do in half an hour or 40 minutes to get people into a creative space? Because we're, at the moment, it feels like we are we're just a bit of a hamster wheel.
It's when you're under pressure, you can't change brain gear, can you? It's very hard to then say, right, I'm going to stop for half an hour and I'm going to change my brain gear from firefighting to, okay, let's have a bit of fun and let's think about outside the box. It's very, very difficult. So providing a space and thinking about those rapid ways to get people into that mindset is very important. So yeah, good.
And it's okay to have fun at work, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Cool, that's great. So well done, and thank you everybody for contributing. I think that was really good. If we go to probably next two slides, I think. That's what we've already done. Yeah, I mean, just to summarize, it's we talked about those mental values of streams of thoughts, and why we need to push for innovation and change the system. And hopefully, if you're not familiar with that divergent convergent thought thinking, I'd highly recommend it, and have fun with generating all those ideas, basically. If you go to the next slide, Charlotte, and you know, Clear is obviously there's lots of people out there doing that work. Clear, we have our pattern here that we like to do and to follow, and we think it works really well in lots of different parts of healthcare and lots of different kind of arenas. And if you're interested, please go to the website and have a look, or you know, contact if you've got contact details of any of the speakers or myself, happy to have a chat about it anytime.